A colleague excluded me from his wedding, which resulted in a significant deterioration in the quality of our professional relationship. I have been employed by my company for 7 years, 5 of which have been spent on my current team. There are 15 individuals on the team, and we have developed a relatively close-knit rapport. I have a colleague named Bob, who is 33 years old and joined the team at the same time as I did. During the pandemic, he informed the entire team via Zoom that he was now engaged. Fast forward to January, and Bob stated that his wedding would be held in September. In the preceding months, invitations to the event had been distributed to all members of the team. However, mine was not among them. After a few weeks of waiting, I inquired with Bob about the status of my invitation. He responded with a solemn expression and informed me that I had been excluded due to a spacing issue. Despite his efforts to resolve the matter, he was unable to accommodate my invitation. He expressed hope that I would not take this decision personally and assured me that I would receive wedding favors and a piece of cake. Additionally, he requested that I maintain confidentiality regarding this matter. Please do not make a fuss about it. I was unsure how to respond, so I simply agreed and walked away. I must admit that I was disappointed. I dislike feeling excluded, and this was particularly upsetting because everyone else on the team was attending, except for me. I enjoy weddings, they are usually enjoyable occasions. I kept this to myself, but I was not happy. The day of the wedding, 3 weeks ago, passed without incident. Everyone on my team had a great time and said it was beautiful. The food and party were excellent. It would appear that a dozen fresh apple cider donuts were distributed to attendees as a takeaway. I did not, however, receive the cake or wedding favors. At work the following Monday, my colleague Sherry informed me that there had been confusion regarding my whereabouts. It transpired that Bob had stated that I was unwell and unable to attend. I was initially perplexed and then annoyed. I informed her that I had not been invited and that was the end of it. She appeared shocked and asked me to confirm, to which I replied in the affirmative. She then informed a number of other individuals that I had not been invited. I was invited, and I confirmed that this was indeed the case. Today was Bob's first day back from his honeymoon, and it seems that he was aware of my disclosure. He approached me in the break room and expressed his displeasure at my sharing the information with Sher. He asserted that my absence from the wedding was not a significant issue, yet I countered that it was akin to being excluded from an event that others were attending. We engaged in a back-and-forth exchange before Bob departed. I was visibly distressed, to the extent that my project manager approached me to inquire about my well-being, having heard about the situation. As I was not invited, I did not want this to become a significant issue. Therefore, I initially agreed to attend. However, other team members approached me and stated that Bob should have extended an invitation to me, as it was inappropriate. I acknowledged that it was his prerogative to invite whom he wished, but I also had the right to express my disappointment at being excluded. Reddit, am I in the wrong for disclosing that I was not invited to the wedding and expressing my displeasure? Additional information: 12 out of 15 individuals on my team are older and thus married or in a committed relationship. In addition to Bob and myself, there is a 26-year-old woman who was invited and attended the wedding unaccompanied. This leads me to believe that my wife did not want me to attend, although I am unsure why. We met at a work Christmas party and spent the majority of our conversation discussing Super Mario Maker and Breath of the Wild for approximately 15 minutes. It is unlikely that she is interested in me, as she did add me as a contact to download some of my levels for Super Mario Maker, but I have not seen or heard from her for approximately 3 years. It is possible that she simply enjoys my level of construction. To those inquiring, I am as pale as the others and possess no distinguishing characteristics. My team includes individuals of color, as well as those who were invited to the wedding. Based on my observations, would not describe myself as traditionally attractive. I am not as physically attractive as Jimmy G. Apollo, but I am tall, with a lean physique. To address the question posed by several individuals, I have had success in the dating realm. I am heterosexual, if I may be so bold as to state that without appearing the individual in question, whom I shall refer to as absorbed douche, is not a malevolent person. The individual in question is of a shorter stature than myself, yet still possesses an admirable height. His conversational abilities are noteworthy, and I am confident that he would not be intimidated by me. The reason I am reluctant to make a fuss about this is that we both work from home 3 days a week, which limits the frequency of our interactions. Furthermore, I have never had a disagreement with Bob other than this, but I will certainly monitor how Bob is managing the narrative and ensure that I report any issues to my project manager. Update: Am I the inappropriate party for informing people that I was not invited to the event? I would like to express my gratitude to all those who offered responses, particularly those who extended wedding invitations. I have an update to this narrative, which took an intriguing turn. Bob and I were in the office today when he approached me and requested a conversation. He proposed a beer drinking session with his wife to discuss the matter further. I agreed to this arrangement. After work, I met Bob and his wife, Pam, at a bar. They both expressed regret for not inviting me and for making me feel excluded. Bob also apologized for fabricating the truth and becoming enraged over it. The reason they did not extend an invitation to me was because they did not want single males to attend the wedding. In 2019, a significant wedding ceremony was marred by the actions of a group of inebriated single males who began to engage in inappropriate behavior with the female attendees. This led to a series of heated confrontations between the boyfriends and husbands of some of the women present, resulting in arrests and the complete disruption of the event. I found this incident particularly troubling. I was shown a couple of Facebook videos of the event in question, which appeared to show a significant number of people engaged in a physical altercation. Additionally, I was presented with several Facebook statuses that corroborated the account provided by the informant. The informant, Pam, expressed that she was deeply affected by the incident and asserted that she would not allow any single males to be present at her wedding. The wedding eventually took place, and Pam remained firm in her decision. Only family members, couples, single women, and trusted single men were invited. According to Pam, there were only about 10 single men in attendance, and they were all family members or groomsmen. She stated that the event was a success because it allowed women to enjoy the party without worrying about being hit on. Pam stated that she was concerned about being hit on. She asserted that her actions were not personal and expressed regret for not inviting me, though she indicated that she would do so if given the opportunity. I inquired whether she and Bob did not trust me to exercise self-control. In response, Pam noted that Bob had vouched for me but that she remained firm in her decision. She stated that she would have to explain her decision if anyone inquired about it and that Bob would select the destination for their honeymoon. Interestingly, she mentioned that she has a sister who is approximately my age and that I am simply her type. She expressed her desire to keep her away from me, which I found somewhat disconcerting. However, she clarified that her intention was for her sister is somewhat of a SLT, according to her own words, and she was concerned that she might influence me negatively. Her words: Bob said he should have handled the situation better and that he wanted to be honest, but that it would not have made much of a difference. Therefore, he hoped I would not be too upset. Additionally, I surmised that I would be unlikely to attend a wedding as a single male. I informed them that I felt somewhat disrespected. Pam stated that she believed I was a pleasant, intelligent, and amusing individual, yet she sought to guarantee that their nuptials would proceed without incident. Hitch promised to make it up to me, but I informed him that such an act would be unnecessary. Pam insisted on providing an apology, and we made plans to have dinner at their expense at a very nice restaurant in the city this weekend. Ultimately, it became clear that my actions were not the source of the problem. I still feel somewhat insulted, but I suppose I will receive a complimentary dinner as a result. I have been advised that I am being naive and that I am allowing the situation to continue unchallenged. This is because I have been labeled a creep. I am aware that this may be the case, but I am not convinced that I should be so easily forgiven. I do believe in taking the high road on most occasions, but I do not believe this should be one of those times. As a side note, I do not believe that wanting to see the best in people and trusting their word makes one naive. I had a call an hour ago with my project manager, during which I explained. The entire situation was advised to be taken to HR and a formal complaint filed, as it could potentially lead to a hostile work environment. A meeting with the individual in question is scheduled for Monday. It is not the intention to file a formal complaint, rather, it is to have it on file in case of any future developments. In the opinion of the individual, there is no likelihood of such developments. While he may appear to be of a certain character, I have been mistaken on numerous occasions. Therefore, I am grateful for the advice provided here. I will not be attending the dinner with Bob and Pam. However, I will insist on a public apology that does not imply that I am a creep. Furthermore, I am insisting on some fresh apple cider donuts, not store. I have purchased a fresh batch of Reddit, and I am grateful to you for helping me to see the truth. I am disappointed, however, that I am turning down some Wagyu steak, so you all owe me one. Before I provide an update and additional context, I would like to clarify and contextualize a few things. I have received several posts and direct messages asking why I felt entitled to be invited. I wanted to clarify, I do not feel entitled to anything. I did indeed desire an invitation, but as previously stated, had the individuals involved been forthright from the outset, I would have been less disconcerted. I was not offended by their actions on their wedding day. My issue was that Bob's choice was obscured by the actions of the subra. I have never discussed women with Bob. It is evident that there was never a close relationship between the men on the team. While it is possible that the women interacted with one another in a similar manner, this cannot be confirmed. It is therefore reasonable to conclude that the account provided by Pam regarding her experiences with men is accurate. Pam was forced to turn away some of her single male friends, while Bob had numerous male friends who wished to attend but were denied entry. Pam and some of her friends had had unfavorable experiences being propositioned at nightclubs. She was concerned about their safety and decided to exclude men from women-only clubs. The Royal Rumble event took place at the wedding of one of her closest friends. The bride and her husband were distressed, and the wedding itself was negatively affected. The event was ultimately unsuccessful for me, as I was responsible for covering the cost of my own attendance. I had been invited to the wedding of one of my close friends, and I was eager to attend. However, there were several factors that contributed to the event's eventual failure. Firstly, Pam was unfamiliar with me, despite my reputation for creating excellent Super Mario Maker-level designs. Bob was eager to support me, but Pam was uncertain about my inclusion. Then, she recalled her sister, whom she loves dearly but who has a reputation for being promiscuous. She is a promiscuous individual who is indiscriminate in her sexual partners. I am perceived as being within her desired physical type, and she would have been interested in pursuing a romantic relationship with me. Bob expressed concern that I would be offended if I was not invited to the event. In response, she proposed a compromise, suggesting that she take responsibility for the decision not to invite me. It is possible that her intention was to avoid causing me distress. I am relatively naive, but I am inclined to believe Bob's assertion that he felt terrible about not inviting me. He appeared genuinely distressed, which suggests that either he is an exceptionally talented actor or he is being truthful. He acknowledged that his performance was regrettable and that there was no way of conducting this event that would not have been awkward. With regard to his motivation for lying, it is unclear. It would appear that he was overcome with panic and was unable to devise a more suitable course of action. His anger towards me for refusing to comply with his proposal was not necessarily directed at me, but rather at Pam for placing him in that compromising position. He has promised to issue a full apology in front of the team when we are all together in the office again in a few weeks. Pam did indicate that she felt remorse about the exclusion of the other men, yet she would do so again to ensure the safety of the women in her vicinity. She was adamant about making amends with me and proposed that we maintain a cordial relationship moving forward. She extended an invitation to a home-cooked meal, which she proposed be followed by a glass of wine. I declined the offer of a round of Mario Kart. At this point, the suggestion of an expensive restaurant was made, and I accepted it as a fair compromise. The other party did not feel the need to offer a sincere apology, but they were offering me dinner, so I accepted. In retrospect, this was an unwise decision, but at the time, I was in a difficult position. I was eager to conclude the interaction and return home to review the comments that had been posted, which labeled me a doormat. After considering these remarks, I decided to decline the dinner invitation. I contacted Bob on his work phone to explain my change of heart. He expressed disappointment but was understanding of my rationale. I trimmed some of the talking points, and he responded by saying, he acknowledged my decision and agreed that we could simply move on. I thanked him for his understanding and he terminated the call. I assumed that would be the end of it, but less than 5 minutes later, Bob called me back. I expressed my dismay and answered the call, only to discover that it was Pam on the other end. She did not approach the conversation with hostility, but she sounded upset and inquired as to why I no longer wished to attend. I informed her of my conversation with Bob, during which I was told that I was perceived as a potential sexual predator. I explained that I did not intend to invalidate her experiences but that I was not willing to accept being labeled as such. She stated that she did not intend to be so harsh and that she did not believe I was a sexual predator. Furthermore, she asserted that she believed I was a decent person but felt unable to take the risk of attending her wedding. She implored me to meet with her in person to discuss the matter further, suggesting that we could potentially become close friends if I were to give her an opportunity to clarify her perspective. I politely declined, citing that I had to take my leave, and expressed my regret that I concluded the conversation by stating, "By the way, I did not even receive those donuts." I then terminated the call. There has been no further communication since then, but Bob will be returning to the office on Monday, and I am concerned that Pam may take drastic action. I hope this matter is resolved, but I am uncertain that it will be. I will provide an update if any developments occur. Update on Bob's drunken confession. As previously stated, I contacted Bob to inform him that I would not be accepting his and Pam's invitation to a weekend dinner. He expressed disappointment but concurred with my decision. Pam subsequently contacted me, attempting to maintain the plans. However, I declined. I concluded the conversation and hoped that would be the end of it. However, the situation persisted. On Monday, I arrived 2 hours early at the office in order to potentially avoid a meeting with Bob after work. To my surprise, Bob arrived an hour early, which led me to believe that he might leave with me. Upon seeing him, I observed that he appeared exhausted. Mentally, he seemed to be experiencing a profound fatigue. I have observed Bob experiencing fatigue in the past, particularly during periods of extended work on projects. However, this fatigue was not a result of exhaustion from overwork. Instead, it manifested as a visible weariness, as though he were bearing the weight of a significant internal stressor. He sent me a text message, and I replied with one of my own. We proceeded to resume our work. I scheduled a meeting with the human resources representative, who is a highly competent professional. I informed Sally of the entire series of events and she stated that, in her 15 years of experience in the field of human resources, she had never encountered a more implausible narrative. We engaged in a brief but amicable exchange and she informed me that the incident would be unofficially logged in the event that Bob or Pam engaged in any erratic or inappropriate behavior. She expressed her belief that Bob was not a threat but advised me to maintain a vigilant watch for any further developments. The day's events were relatively uneventful. The most noteworthy occurrence was observing Bob's demeanor, which appeared to be one of profound distress. With 2 hours remaining, I proceeded to the break room to obtain some water. Bob followed me in and approached with a cautious demeanor. I gave him a surprised look, and he simply threw up his hands in a gesture that seemed to convey a sense of helplessness. He was not hostile. He stated that he was aware I was the last person he wished to speak with at that moment, yet he felt compelled to communicate with me. I acquiesced, but guided our conversation to a location where the security camera was positioned. In summary, he said, "Look, I will never speak with you again if you do not want me to, but allow me to buy you a drink and explain everything." Pam had not informed me of certain details when we met the other day. Bob sounded desperate, which was a new experience for me. He then made a remark that I found particularly noteworthy. He said, "I could really use a friend right now, and I've always considered you a friend." I was taken aback by his request, as I had not anticipated such a need. I replied, "I'm sorry to disappoint everyone here, but I'm a gullible individual." I consented to engage in further discussion with him, stipulating, however, that there would be no further meetings on this matter. He acquiesced, indicating his willingness to meet me after work. We proceeded to our customary establishment, the same one where I had initially encountered him and Pam. I surmised that she might be present, but she was not. Nevertheless, I maintained surveillance. Once we were seated, Bob apologized once more. This apology seemed even more genuine than the previous one. I informed him that he did not need to apologize repeatedly. I had already understood his initial explanation that he felt compelled to apologize because there was more to the story about the wedding than I had initially realized. Bob proceeded to explain that he and Pam had argued. Despite her initial reluctance, Pam was adamant about maintaining the single men's exclusion. The couple engaged in a prolonged dispute, during which numerous individuals proposed alternative solutions. However, Pam consistently rejected these suggestions. She had always envisioned a lavish wedding ceremony with a vast number of attendees. A modest wedding did not align with her vision. Her parents suggested hiring a security guard, but Pam was adamant about eliminating the possibility entirely. She asserted that a few single men could benefit from not attending a celebration. Bob stated that numerous friends wished to attend, and Pam asserted that she was also making sacrifices. Many of her male friends wanted to attend the event. Bob eventually acquiesced, stating that if the exclusion were to occur, he would not be involved in the decision-making process and would not be held responsible for it. Pam agreed to assume responsibility for the consequences of the decision. She also permitted Bob the option of selecting their honeymoon destination, given the significant compromise he was making. They ultimately opted for the French Riviera. For those interested, Bob described the wedding reception and party as exceptional. He noted that a considerable number of women were inebriated and overly enthusiastic. While there was a perception of safety, a small but vocal group of individuals expressed discontent about the lack of attractive men to dance with. Bob found this amusing, particularly when one of them began referring to it as a lesbian wedding due to the absence of men. Additionally, some women behaved in a manner that could be perceived as overly forward. A handful of single men were also the subject of their attention, but Pam did not take umbrage at this. Bob stated that he was not attempting to cause offense, he was merely making a point. After the honeymoon, they returned home to what Bob described as a PR firestorm. It transpired that Pam had misled her male acquaintances about the reason for their exclusion. One of her close friends was privy to this information. She revealed the actual reason for their exclusion, which incited a strong negative reaction. She received numerous angry calls and messages from her friends regarding her accusation that they were potential sexual predators. Despite her attempts to clarify her stance to her friends on multiple occasions, they remained unresponsive. As a result of this incident, she has lost a significant number of friends. One of the men stated, "If you believe I am a rapist, then why are we even friends?" Pam has been in a state of distress for several days, and her professional life has become exceedingly challenging. She may even be compelled to leave her position by this point. Bob had consumed a few alcoholic beverages and was in a somewhat inebriated state, so he divulged more information. He stated that her decision had resulted in the loss of friendships. Many of his male friends were displeased to discover that they had been excluded from the wedding for reasons that they felt were unjustified. In response, approximately 6 of his closest friends who had been excluded collectively decided to embark on a fishing trip as a form of defiance towards Bob and Pam. As a final act of petty retaliation, they chose to donate $500 and some items to a local women's shelter. Bob was profoundly distressed, and none of those men have responded to his communications, including their families. Pam's parents have expressed public support but have also admonished their daughter behind the scenes. She has limited support, relying on her bridesmaids and approximately 3 other individuals. Friends who support her position. At one point, Bob stated that Pam was hysterical and screaming, "Why can't anyone just understand my point of view?" I was taken aback by this outburst, yet there was more to this complex situation. At this juncture, we had been engaged in conversation for approximately an hour, and Bob was in a state of mild inebriation. I inquired for further details, and he replied that initially, Pam was unwavering in her stance that the exclusion was a beneficial decision. However, she was beginning to exhibit signs of hesitation. He stated that the majority of individuals seemed to comprehend her perspective, yet they perceived it as excessive. The situation has resulted in numerous altercations between Bob and Pam, who have become increasingly frustrated with one another. Bob expressed that, rather than feeling elated about his new wife and basking in the joy of marriage, he is burdened with resentment towards her due to the significant impact she has had on his life. Friends and ruined their lives over a trivial social gathering. As for me, it would seem that Pam harbors a strong affinity for me. One of her most profound regrets about this entire situation is not having had the opportunity to become better acquainted with me prior to the wedding. He stated that Pam considers me to be one of the most intriguing individuals she has ever encountered. I inquired of Bob how she had reached such a conclusion after a mere 15-minute conversation. In a brief conversation, he responded with humor, suggesting that perhaps Pam has developed a romantic interest in me. This remark, while amusing, did create a somewhat peculiar atmosphere. Regarding Pam's sister, Bob clarified that although she is a sexual and love therapist, SLT, her professional expertise does not align with conventional expectations. He described her as a highly intelligent, accomplished, and respectful individual. Interestingly, Bob revealed that Beth's personal interests extend beyond the conventional realm of sexuality, encompassing more unconventional forms of intimacy. The subject of monogamy is frequently discussed by Beth with Bob and Pam, and it was this discussion that led them to adopt the lifestyle. I was somewhat surprised by this revelation and requested further information. Bob confirmed that Beth had indeed encouraged us to explore some of these activities. I was taken aback by this admission, as it is not common to learn that a colleague is engaged in BDSM. However, I did not engage in any negative judgment of Beth or her lifestyle choices. It became evident that Beth is not a seductive, manipulative, or promiscuous individual. She is simply a regular woman who Bob stated that Pam was concerned that we would become close. We share numerous interests and possess similar personality traits, according to Bob. Pam was not lying about that, nor was I her ideal partner. She prefers taller men, and based on what I have heard, she would have been interested in me if she had learned that I was single. I was intrigued, so I inquired if he had a photograph. He retrieved her Instagram profile, and I must admit, she was strikingly attractive. She resembled Pam, but with slightly more body mass. I must admit that I was somewhat displeased with Pam once more. Bob stated that Pam has consistently exhibited jealousy towards Beth. I am uncertain as to why Pam is an attractive individual herself and bears a striking resemblance to Beth. Bob asserted that, as a gesture of goodwill towards Pam, he would provide my Instagram details so that we can communicate privately and he can act as an intermediary on my behalf. I expressed my gratitude profusely. He further stated that Pam was eager to reconcile with me because I made a significant impression on her, and she believes that we would be compatible and enjoy each other's company if we were to interact more. Bob stated that she is currently attempting to salvage her social connections, as she has lost the majority of her friends. He indicated that he would intervene with Pam to prevent her from contacting me. By this point, Bob is inebriated. He has expressed reservations about the marriage, citing the wedding process and its aftermath as a challenging experience. It would be an unwise decision to divorce her over this, but his life has been adversely affected by her actions. I was taken aback, and he requested that I not inform Pam. I promised that I would not divulge any information. Bob paid for our drinks and planned to take public transportation home, but I advised him that he should take an Uber. He initially resisted, but I persisted, and he agreed to take one. I escorted him to the Uber and sent him on his way an hour later. Pam texted me from his work phone. She expressed gratitude for my assistance, describing me as a good person. I did not respond, and that brings us to the present. I hope that this is the end of it, but Pam may be driven by desperation to take rash action. Regardless, I will keep you informed. New development, a date with Beth. I have no significant updates, but I have a minor update. Bob honored his commitment and provided Beth with my Instagram. She contacted me last week, and we engaged in a lengthy discussion, which concluded with an agreement to meet for coffee this past weekend. I regret to inform those who have expressed skepticism that the meeting was, in fact, quite positive. We discussed a range of topics, including our hobbies, interests, future careers, and families. As it turns out, we have many similarities, including some surprising ones regarding our food preferences. The meeting concluded with an invitation to continue the conversation over drinks at a bar near her workplace. That meeting also proceeded well. Furthermore, I am pleased to announce that we will be embarking on a hiking excursion this upcoming weekend. Our itinerary will include a visit to the winery where Bob and Pam had their wedding, where we will procure apple cider donuts. Should this date prove to be a success, I will propose to her. She has a unique quality that I find appealing, and I will provide an update on the hiking trip. Having reached a state of equilibrium, Bob has maintained a certain distance, but has nevertheless facilitated my involvement with Pam, who has not contacted me for approximately a week. Following the excursion, it is likely that this will be my final contribution. I have no intention of prolonging this process unnecessarily. I extend my gratitude to all those who have accompanied me thus far. This marks the conclusion of my narrative. I would like to express my appreciation to all those who have supported me throughout this tumultuous journey. I am also grateful for the congratulations I have received regarding my relationship with Beth. I will now proceed with the aforementioned update. On a previous occasion, I had the opportunity to meet and spend time with Beth. She is an exceptional individual, displaying remarkable intelligence, humor, ambition, and kindness. I am deeply enamored with this remarkable woman. Recently, we embarked on a hiking excursion on Saturday, which proved to be an extraordinary experience. The weather was optimal, the foliage was stunning, and the view from the summit was breathtaking. We enjoyed a picnic at the peak, and during a lull in the conversation, I mustered the courage to. I inquired as to whether she would be amenable to becoming my romantic partner. I had been biding my time, awaiting a more opportune moment, but I suppose I was simply swept up in the moment. In view of the circumstances, she smiled, laughed, and informed me that I was the most cornball person alive for asking in such a cliché place. However, she stated that she loved corny and cliché. She said yes, and we sealed the deal with a kiss on our way back. We finally stopped by the winery where Bob and Pam had their wedding, and it truly was a beautiful setting with panoramic views. The vistas of the mountains and the vineyard were quite lovely, but I was not there for the scenery. I was there for the apple cider donuts. It is somewhat amusing that we arrived rather late and nearly missed the fresh donuts of the day. Fortunately, we procured some of the last batches. The donuts were truly exquisite. We purchased 2 dozen each and even obtained some apple-filling cider donuts. The wait was well worth it. Subsequent to that, we returned to her apartment and made dinner together proved to be an exceptional experience. It was the most perfect date I had ever had with a woman. I was reluctant to leave, but I was also hesitant to presume anything when I picked up my keys. She took them from me and said, "If you seriously think you're leaving, then you're out of your mind." I was so delighted that I had to smile. We spent the rest of the weekend together. We had a delightful Sunday brunch and a pleasant walk around our city. Despite holding hands and going into the store together, we were forced to part ways last night due to the necessity of attending work the following morning. I was on the verge of tears. It may sound overly dramatic, but I have spent the last few hours at work feeling profoundly unhappy about being separated from Beth. It is akin to the experience of being in high school and having your first boyfriend or girlfriend, when you are unable to bear being apart from them, yet you do not desire the conventional, sentimental love story. If you are seeking a dramatic account, I will oblige. On Sunday, I and Beth made our relationship Instagram official. It seems that Pam observed this on her sister's profile. On Sunday night, Pam texted Beth. She inquired about our acquaintance. In response, Bob introduced us. Pam's reply was, "I knew this would happen." We anticipated that this might lead to complications in the future, but we were unconcerned. This morning, I approached Bob and expressed gratitude for facilitating my introduction to Beth. He elaborated on the circumstances. He informed me that he and Pam had engaged in a significant verbal altercation regarding his decision to introduce us. Despite the conflict, he expressed that he was not concerned about the outcome and that it was worthwhile to facilitate our meeting. He regarded this as a gesture of appreciation towards Pam. I offered to purchase him a meal as a token of gratitude, but he declined, stating that it was the least he could do. This concludes my update on the matter. I am hopeful that this marks the conclusion of the situation. However, Pam appears distressed about our relationship. Regardless, I am elated to have met Beth. She is a remarkable individual. She is a kind and benevolent individual, and I will provide further updates should any developments occur. May you find peace and love.